In applications such as multi-story car parks, long corridors, or stairwells, users benefit from so-called leading light, in which the current luminaire group also activates the next luminaire group. We implement this swarm function with the LiveLink ONE app using the so-called neighborhood function. Today we'll show you exactly how this works. Hello, I'm Marcus, and I'm your contact for all your questions about the LiveLink light management system from TRILUX.
Hello, my name is Ralph. I am product manager for our LiveLink systems.
Some of you are probably already familiar with our LiveLink SwarmSense solution. We incorporate this radio-based swarm function into many of our moisture-proof diffuser lights or into the OLISC range. The advantage of the wireless solution is, of course, that we don't have to run new wiring during refurbishments, or often there is simply no DALI bus line available. Why are we now doing this for DALI as well?
Yes, Marcus, you've already said it. Today we only use this swarm function, this swarm solution, in radio-controlled luminaires. Depending on the environmental conditions, radio naturally harbors the risk that it can also be susceptible to interference. And that is why we are now also bringing this function into our DALI-based solutions, because a wired solution is of course still the most stable and robust solution.
That certainly makes sense, Ralph. Why don't you give us a brief overview of what happens on the software side with such a sponge function? How does the whole thing work?
Yes, I'd love to, Marcus. To start with, we'd like to say briefly that this new function, which we are now integrating into LiveLink, will of course work for our small systems, i.e. for our single DALI line systems such as our LiveLink Wi-Fi, but of course also for our large systems, our LiveLink Premium. We realize the whole thing based on groups of luminaires. I can link these luminaire groups, which are linked to a motion sensor, with other luminaire groups, so that I can tell my luminaire group who the neighbor is. And as soon as movement is detected in a neighboring group, I switch on my basic light level as a lighting group, and have thus already ensured that the neighbors are also switched on when there is movement in the surrounding groups.
I'm a huge fan of the neighborhood function because it gives the user a sense of security and orientation. The whole thing is certainly complex in terms of lighting technology, but it is easy to program in the LiveLink ONE app. Why don't you show us how, Ralph?
Yes, perhaps a few sentences about the prerequisites we need to be able to configure this neighborhood function. Of course, we need appropriate lighting groups. LiveLink always works based on luminaire groups. For the neighborhood function, we then also need a motion sensor, which we have to link to the luminaire groups. The motion sensor is, of course, depending on the application we have, possibly positioned in the car park or in the corridor in the appropriate places, such as entrances or pathways, so that we can enable light to run ahead. That's all we need as a prerequisite. And now I'll show you in the app how easy it is to make this configuration. To show you how easy it is to configure the neighborhood function, I have prepared a small example. In the example, I have created two luminaire groups in our LiveLink system, groups G1 and G2. Both groups of lights are already linked to the motion sensor. Both groups of luminaires must of course also be in the same light scene, so that we can implement a neighborhood function in the scene. To do this, I switch to the Scenes menu and select the relevant scene. To link luminaire group G2 with luminaire group G1, I only select luminaire group G2 and can use a neighborhood function in the configuration for presence detection by activating the function, activating a basic light, selecting the basic light level, for example 20%, coupled with a run-on time, and now I have the option of activating this neighborhood function. Now I can say to the G2 lighting group, who is your neighbor? To do this, I select Select Groups, choose the luminaire group G1, and then save this configuration and have now very simply configured the neighborhood function. This means that if movement is detected in luminaire group G1, luminaire group G2 switches on at its basic light level of 20%.
Okay, that was really easy. But what do I do if I want to deactivate the neighborhood function for some reason?
We have two options for this. Of course, if I no longer want the neighborhood function, I can remove it from the scene, or I can simply create a second scene that does not contain this neighborhood function, activate it, and then work without this function.
Could I also do this with a push button that I mount on the wall?
Yes, you can of course call up the scene, a new scene, via buttons or simply via the LiveLink ONE app.
Many thanks, Ralph, for this great overview.
Please, Marcus.
As you can see, the LiveLink neighborhood function brings even more intelligence to light if you do it right. If you would like to know more about this or other great LiveLink features, please contact me directly. Send me an email or visit our website at www.trilux.com/LiveLink. See you next time.
Bye. Take care.